Hello, hello, hello. All right, today, this is lecture, let's see, I think it's number, yep, this is lecture number 16. This is Manifest Destiny during the 1800s. All right, your key points are simple today. Manifest Destiny, woohoo, the Mexican-American War, and the California Gold Rush. So, this lecture is fairly straightforward, just like the last one with the Industrial Revolution. It's a thematic one. It's talking about a hugely important event that reshapes our nation. With this one, um, it really starts with the purchase of the Louisiana Purchase territory, right? The Louisiana Purchase and all the territory we would gain from this, it would double the size of America, and Americans would start going west in large numbers. It would start with Montgomery Zebulon Pike, Lewis and Clark, like we talked about, and also John C. Fremont and many other explorers that would go west to push the boundaries of the United States of America. This very quickly leads into the creation of mountain men. Mountain men are the fur trappers. These are the men, these are the hunters, these are the white hunters that went west and were always in the frontier and continued to go out into the frontier to trap, to kill, to make their living plying fur. Um, hey, extra credit reports, don't forget, a great movie that would be a great extra credit report is The Revenant with Leonardo DiCaprio. All right, with these mountain men, you have people like William H. Ashley and Andrew Henry and the creation of the Rocky Mountain Fur Company. This was huge, huge money, both here in America and abroad. And these mountain men, not only were they trappers, not only were they working for a living as fur traders, they were also looked at as trailblazers, men that went out into the wilderness, carved new niches, created new things. All right. One of the most famous um, fur trappers, other than Leonardo's character in The Revenant, the big one I also want to bring up is Jebediah Smith. So if you want to, you guys can look into The Revenant and also Jebediah Smith. Very, very fascinating stories. Also, you have other trailblazers of this time, and it's people like William Becknell that had chains of general stores that would go out west and continue going out west and opening more and more of them as the white population expanded. All right. Another thing we need to talk about with moving west, all right, is the staging grounds. Where did people go to go west? All right. Illinois, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana. That was the line. That was the far west in white America's mind. And that's where they would go if they wanted to continue on into the West. The main trails that white Americans used to go west, you have the Oregon Trail, of course. I'm sure everybody has played the computer game at some point in their life. We also have the Santa Fe Trail, the California Trail, the Butterfield Overland Trail, the Old Spanish Trail. These are all major trails that guides take white Americans and go west on. All right. So, All right. This one, you know, this lecture is just like the last one. It's not going to be that long. All right. It's really focused in on the significant ideas. And I want to, so far it's been an overview. What we need to get into now is really our first key point. All right. And that key point is manifest destiny. All right. Manifest destiny in American history has always been synonymous with expansion, growth, moving, going different places, going everywhere. All right. And the term manifest destiny comes to us from a newspaper man. Not just any newspaper man, but a Democratic newspaper man. Sorry about that. All right, let's do that over. All right, silence. The term manifest destiny comes to us from a newspaper man, right? Not just any newspaper man, but a Democratic newspaper man in the Jeffersonian lineage, all right? His name was John O'Sullivan, and in one of his editorials in his newspaper, he wrote, "Our manifest destiny to overspread the continent allotted to us by Providence for the free development of our yearly multiplying millions." All right. So, what this is really pushing, what it's really promoting is that it's the idea that it is our God given challenge, our God given right to go west, to conquer, to take over, to create. It's our manifest destiny. So this comes from a Democratic newsman by the name of John O'Sullivan. All right. Other things that push manifest destiny, or you could call it sources of manifest destiny. National pride, as we conquer, as we grow, just like with any other country in human history, the larger we are, the more patriotic, the more pride that people have in their country. Also, evangelical religion. Religion is pushing for people to go west, to create something new, to make more, and to also convert all those savages, those Native Americans out there that had never heard the Word of God. Well, the European God. Also, economics. We always go west, we always expand, we always try to get more to gain more wealth, right? So, economics plays a role. And this also has to do with national politics. With national politics, the idea is, it's proud to be from somewhere, proud to be an American, promoting and pushing nationalism. All right. Something kind of for everybody to think about is, if you were alive back then, why would you go west? Right? If you want to understand why the common man went west and kept going west, think about it and try to come up with why you would do it. All right. During this time, we have James K. Polk. Polk is our president that I want to focus on during a huge part of Manifest Destiny. All right. When Polk came in, he pretty much gives us one of the most intense one-term presidencies. Polk didn't want to be president. Polk didn't seek the presidency. The Democratic Party came after him, convinced him of it, and he said that he would do 5 things in one term, and then he would retire because he didn't want any more, and he did not even want that office. So, you get a really strange presidency. You have a president that actually doesn't want to be there. You have a president that has very specific goals in mind, and all he focuses on are those goals, and he accomplishes them. He wants a new boundary in the Northwest, so this is pushing into Washington territory. He wants California. He wants to work on the tariffs and fix the tariffs where they benefit the U.S. as a whole, not just merchants or agriculturalists. He wants to push for a treasury that's based on more constitutional lines instead of this Alexander Hamilton treasury that's based on a national banking system. And also, he wants Texas. All right? So you see that he wants that territory in the Northwest that's Washington and Oregon. He wants California, and he wants Texas. That brings us in to basically the rest of the American West. But he also wants to fix these tariffs. He wants to fix the banking system and the treasury system. And he works very hard with all of these and actually accomplishes it. He is usually, and well, he tended to be referred to as Young Hickory. He was also from Tennessee. Jackson loved him, and he was an ally of Jackson would be the best way to put it. And with him, you of course get the second president from the state of Tennessee. But with Young Hickory, rather, Jackson was always known as Old Hickory. With Polk, we have this really big shift in the presidency. And we have yet another president, much like the Whigs of the past wanted to be, that have a particular platform, a particular thing to focus on, and really aims to accomplish it, in which he does. But we also have other things going on, right? I mean, while Polk wants to get that Pacific Northwest, which would be our, Idaho, Oregon, Washington, that whole area. At that time, we were moving in there in large numbers, mainly thanks to missionaries. You have the Reverend Jason Lee from Missouri sending large numbers of people west, especially into the Pacific Northwest, to settle in and start farming, to start living, and to start trading with the natives. And Lee and these white natives would set up a very, very good relationship with the Nez Perce. The Nez Perce were the major tribe. They controlled the Pacific Northwest. And these whites and Native Americans lived peacefully with each other. They traded, they governed, and everything seemed to go fairly smoothly. All right. Also during this time, which didn't go anywhere near as smoothly, was Texas. All right. Mexico wanted to bring in and boost the Mexican economy. So they started recruiting white Southern men to come into the Mexico-held territory of Texas. All right. They wanted to bring these white men into Texas to boost the economy because the Southern economy, the American economy, was doing so well. So they thought that if they brought these guys in, this would help rebuild the Mexican economy. However, by inviting the Southerners in, they brought in slavery. In Mexico, slavery was illegal. It was illegal with the Catholic Church. It was illegal in Spain. So this idea of slavery was repugnant in Texas, outside of the white Southerners that they were bringing in large numbers. So people like Stephen F. Austin, Sam Houston, and many other Southern men would revolt against Mexico and start what would become basically a war for Texas independence, a war for the Lone Star State. And they would fight and fight and fight with the Mexicans, and in many ways would end up winning this Texas Revolution. The Mexicans couldn't stop them, they continued doing what they did, and they would finally be admitted into the U.S. as a slave state, as an actual state in the American governmental system. So, from 1835 to 1850, Texas was at war with Mexico, fighting for its freedom, pretty much win it, and then we would, by the early 1850s, annex Texas as a state. And it would no longer be Spanish owned. Texas would now be American. Also during this time, we would have the Mexican-American War, which is your next key point. The Mexican-American War is 1846 to 1848. It's a very short war, but it's a very important one. All right, the results of this war is that we would take basically the rest of the American West, except for little places like Idaho, Washington, Oregon, that Pacific Northwest, which we'd get a little bit later. But the rest of the American West would come to us and be taken by us through this Mexican-American War. All right. It all starts with us sending, Americans in Texas asking for governmental help to protect themselves against the Mexican army. So we send an army into Texas along what we think is the Texas-American border with Mexico, and sooner or later, it's inevitable. We have a crossing of borders, the Mexicans and Americans fight, and off goes the war. Truth be told, with this Mexican-American War, more than likely what really happened is we sent soldiers down there to try to entice the Mexicans into a confrontation with us, and when they did not engage, we crossed the boundaries and forced a war with Mexico. With this, we would win this war, and we would gain most of the Southwest. Other than, like I said, little places like Idaho, Oregon, Washington State. By that point, we controlled most of America. All right. This brings in a huge, huge issue. All right. And the issue is, of course, slavery. As we move west, as we conquer, Southerners are very happy about this. They want more land. They want to be able to acquire more land so they can create more and more plantations to grow cotton, tobacco, anything else that they can grow as a major cash crop. So, as we acquire this territory, as we acquire this territory through the Mexican-American War, the Southerners want it to be open to slavery so that these states could be slave states. The North didn't want this, the South did, so we have another altercation. This would, of course, lead us to the Compromise of 1850 with Henry Clay, where he yet again saves the Union. We'll talk about that later. That's next time. That's next test, right? So we have this Mexican-American War, where America grows by a third, and it is finally sea to shining sea. We control the large majority of the continental U.S., and slavery yet again rears its ugly head, and the North and South fight over. The last thing we're going to do today, this is the last thing to get to, and it's the California Gold Rush. It's very brief, it's very quick, and it'll make it easy for you. 1848, at Sutter's Mill, not too far outside, in Northern California, James Marshall finds gold. Sutter's Mill is actually a lumber mill, but when they find gold, things get crazy. All right, so California, 1848, James Marshall finds gold at Sutter's Mill. With this, as word spreads that there is gold in the California mountains and hills, Americans go crazy and head west in huge, huge numbers. All right. All right. I'm sure I have football fans. There's football fans out there listening. So, you've heard of the San Francisco 49ers. They're called the 49ers because in 1849, large numbers of white Americans went west for gold. So that idea of a nickname, 49ers, emerges during 1849 when large numbers of white Americans went west in search of gold. Instead of calling them miners, they just called them 49ers. All right? So, we have our key points. We have the California Gold Rush. We have the Mexican-American War. We have Manifest Destiny. We have hit all the major points that I want to hit with this lecture. So as you're reading over it, as you're reading your sections in your documents books, your documents book, if you have any questions, email me. All right. So, Manifest Destiny. This is something that has been with us since the very beginning, right? We came from England to here. That's Manifest Destiny. It's the push west. But we get the nickname, we get the event itself really kind of zeroed in on and laser focused on during the 1830s on. This idea of white American expansion into the frontier. And that's what America was always about. Always expanding, always growing, always changing. Manifest Destiny. All right. Everybody have a good afternoon, and I'll see you next time.